Earlier this week, the AP reported that more than $12 billion in aid to Ukraine would be part of the Stopgap Spending Bill, a bill that funds the government into mid-December, after the Biden administration requested that billions in funding be attached to the package for Ukraine. And just yesterday, another $1.1 billion weapons package was announced for the war-torn country. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre with the announcement.
This includes 18 new high-mobility artillery rocket system, and also known as HIMARS, which Ukraine has used so effectively on the battlefield. It also includes hundreds of armored vehicles, radars, and counter-drone systems. We will not be deterred from supporting Ukraine. We will continue to stand with the Ukrainian people and provide them with the security assistance they need to defend themselves for as long as it takes.
As long as it takes, or until we run out of weapons, that is. According to CNBC, the U.S. and Europe are running out of weapons to send Ukraine. Maybe the shirts off our backs as well. This week, NATO members held a special meeting of the alliance's arms directors to discuss ways to refill members' nations' stockpiles. Wonder if there are some large weapons dealing organizations, companies, etc., that can provide. I'm sure they'd be so happy to do that, to sell us more weapons.
It's a good thing our secretary...
We're stimulating the economy.
How convenient that our Secretary of Defense is a former Raytheon.
Oh, wow.
top guy.
That's a relief.
Think of the scale of that. What that means. That our global stockpile, the country is running out of weapons to send to Ukraine. All of the conflict that's happening in the world, all of the things that are going on around the globe, and the provision of arms to this one spot on the globe has been at such a volume that they're literally running out of materials.
Yeah.
Anywhere to send to them.
Yep. Yeah, that's something Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, frequent guest on our show, warned that we were eventually we'll come to the point where we're actually depleting the stockpile that we're supposed to have in the event of, in the extremely, unbelievably unlikely event. But still, we're supposed to be prepared.
That's the point.
The purpose of the U.S. government is to defend the country, the people of the U.S. from attack.
Yeah.
That is at its most basic, the purpose of government.
Yeah, and
the most core reason we have a federal government is to protect the people of the United States from an attack. And we are compromising our ability to do that, while at the same time perhaps making an actual conflict involving the U.S. and involving U.S. forces, U.S. citizens, U.S. people, somewhat more likely by continuing to participate in this war, which needs to be brought an end to via negotiation and diplomacy. Now is the time. Now is the time. How many times can I say that?
Your point about stockpiles is well taken, especially when you reflect on what we just went through with the monkeypox vaccine. Remember, part of the scandal there was that America has historically kept stockpiles of vaccines in refrigerators across the country in case of a pandemic outbreak, and it had decided to let it expire. Some of the biggest stockpiles expire because it didn't want to incur the expense of maintaining them and refreshing them. And then, the disease hits American shores, and we're scrambling, trying to get shots from Europe and fly them over here. So, I know that it can seem expensive to keep stuff around for when, an emergency. But that, to your point, is literally the entire purpose of the American
Millions
government.
for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute. That's an old U.S. slogan.
I'm not sure
you never heard that?
what that means.
It was for the 1800 quasi-war, I believe, with France. That I believe it was the French ambassador, demanded some huge bribe or something, and from the U.S. government, and we said no, millions for defense. We'll spend millions on our defense, but we will not give you 1 cent for this bribe.
Well, one interesting political aspect of this is that we are having really robust conversations about how Biden's behavior will affect the public one way or the other going into midterms. Whether, inflation coming out of the news a little bit helps him, whether student debt cancellation helps them, whether Roe v. Wade helps them, and whether Democrats are now seeing opportunities that no one anticipated a few months ago during midterms. And all of that conversation about who is going to win, whether, the Trump candidates are going to win versus the DeSantis candidates are going to win, and whether Biden's recent gaffe is going to fell him. funding for Ukraine seems to be a conversation that happens completely separate and apart from his political
He doesn't even think about the political ramifications of it, even though it's clearly not popular.
The public also doesn't seem like the media isn't framing any Ukraine news as this is going to hurt Biden or this is going to help Biden.
Only us.
Yeah.
We are the only ones who talk about, we're literally the only two people in the entire media, virtually, who talk about who acknowledge that a lot of the American people are not nearly as sold, not even close to as sold on the importance of this spending as the government is.
And do you include Fox News, conservative outlets among?
Yeah, well, them as well. Certainly them as well.
We would do that because
I would say we're the only not explicitly conservative show.
But I would argue the fact that even look, if Republicans were screaming Joe Biden sending more money to Ukraine is a terrible idea, people don't want to vote for him, nobody wants to vote for warmonger, I would expect to see some responsive coverage on MSNBC and CNN because they're very reactionary.
Right.
They're always talking about whatever Fox News is talking about. And they would be also saying, well, I don't know if Biden should do this because it's going to hurt him in midterms. But that conversation is not happening, which suggests to me that although there are a few figures on the right who will criticize actions like this, the establishment overall, the conservative establishment overall, is as supportive of this.
Well, and on Fox, I think it's very host specific. Tucker has been very skeptical of the need to help out in the Ukrainian war. He has been very critical of what we're doing. I don't think that's true across the board. I mean, there's genuine differences of opinion, and actually there's genuine differences of opinion among conservatives and among Republican officials. With again, some Republican House members voting against this kind of thing, and most of them not. I would say there's more disagreement, genuine, healthy philosophical disagreement in Republican and conservative circles, frankly, than there are in Democratic circles.
I agree. I cannot and have no interest in defending progressives or the squad at all on this score. They've been really disappointingly silent as these aid packages have gone out. And it's caused some consternation on the left.
My theory is that they've become kind of very responsive or part of, how would I describe it, cultural pressure in a way, given that AOC and others have become cultural figures. Their fashion is critiqued. They're thought leaders in a cultural sense. And the Hollywood and the kind of cultural heights of our country are so in favor of helping Ukraine. I mean, everyone wanted to do their photo op with Zelensky is a good example. So you would almost become a pariah in the circles.
But that's what they were supposed to do.
No, I know. That's not a defense of them. That's an explanation for what they're doing.
And I think it's actually sapping them of their power. Sabby Sabs, who was a guest on this show a week or two ago, she did some interesting coverage recently where she pointed out, she's from the Boston area, I believe five squad members, Ayanna Pressley, AOC, Ilhan Omar, there were some collection of five of them, came to Boston to give a talk, and something like only 100 people were in the room. And she was reflecting on how different that would be if this had happened 2 years ago, when they were, I think, taking a more adversarial posture to the Democratic Party. So they can be silent at their own expense.
Interesting. All right, we'll have more Rising in just a minute. Stay with us.